Here are the answers to the Twitter Q&A questions. From Duck B, will disguise stomp every team in its way? Answer, no. It's cheating at this moment, but we lost the guard already, so GG. From Kazera, whose job is it to hold Exalt's big, massive balls, the way he flash and peeks with KO like a Giga Chad? Well, I don't know, but sometimes it feels like whoever's in charge of that isn't holding his balls, and they are nowhere to be found. From Poe, what are you going to instill in yourself or the team, in or out of server, based off of lessons you learned from 100 Thieves / T1? The biggest things is just like instilling confidence in my teammates, both in and out of the game. I notice that sometimes in big pressure matches, some people kind of disappear and don't play the same way, and I think that's like a big thing that I want to do to make sure that like all my teammates don't feel like that and they're able to just consistently play the same way through practice and in matches. Some Saf Double Z. How did you get into the team? What are the things you like about your players? I got into the team by talking to Ocean. Actually, he was just tuning into my stream. I might have been playing Valorant, I might have been playing Dota, I'm not sure which. And then we took the conversation off of Steam and we're just talking about, you know, plans for this year. And we got to talking about how, well, he had this project that he was wanting to put together, and he was looking for an IGL that could call strats and make strats and deal with that type of stuff. And he would deal with the player development. He said he had a core of players already and other players to fill out the roster in mind. Like, all right, let's do it. And then he had to, I guess, I got into some trials, and then conversations went from I was trialing to just like, yeah, it's just like us three players, me, Gangsta, and Ziff. And then it was just like, instead of it me being trialing, it just somehow became I was just like a part of this project. I don't know when that happened. What are the things I like about my players? I like how nobody's afraid to kind of like talk back. Like talking back seems like you're just like like it's a negative thing, but just being able to kind of explain themselves and talk to each other like there's no like hierarchy of like, oh, I can't say something to this guy because he's like more important or more authority or whatever. Question from Blink Mendoza. Did you guys ever try to actually hang out with Toast? Not yet, but I think it's something that if we're able to do, we'd be up to do it. I don't think anyone here wouldn't want to do that, but it's just not an option at the moment. But as soon as it becomes an option, both like logistically and financially and everything like that, then I think, yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fun. From Athene, Harbor viable on Lotus. Hell yeah, brother. Absolutely. From Burnt Cooter, after coming back stronger so many times, what is your current power level? It is in fact over 9,000. From DSG IDEDGE, what are your expectations for DSG in Challengers League? I think we are hoping to just have enough points, beat the teams that we're like supposed to beat, and you know the only like acceptable losses are to like the powerhouse teams, and then kind of like keep developing and learning as we go through, qualify for the midseason invitational, and then amass enough points by the end of the season to make it to the Challengers playoffs. That's like the overall goal. Not necessarily we have to smash everyone and win everything, but make it there, and by then hopefully we'll be in like a stage where we're like actually like really well oiled and gelled and everything. From Nanika, do you guys scrim against franchise teams or only Ascension teams? We scrim both the partner teams and challengers teams. Whoever's available basically for the most part. There are other teams that aren't in partnership or in challengers that we'll play against as well if there's no one else to play against. It is a little bit tricky at the moment though. Like we're practicing Bind and Breeze. We were playing Lotus and Split for a bit. The partnership level teams are going to playing, they're not playing Bind or Breeze anymore. They're only playing Lotus and Split. So sometimes like we'll be like, oh, okay, we'll get you for Lotus and Split. Oh, wait, no, Bind and Breeze are in the map pool. Hang on, we got to play that instead. We have to cancel with you guys, sorry. But yeah, just getting all sorts of practice from whoever isn't directly in our challengers group is what we're doing right now. And if partnership teams are a part of that, then that's absolutely what we're going to do. But when they go off to Brazil, then obviously we won't have those as scrim partners for a little bit. From Ed Sniper, how much time do you spend on video games at this day? If we're talking about work and we're talking about just like practice schedule and everything like that, then technically like I'm doing it constantly. Even if we're including the time that I'm not in the actual game, but I'm on like Valoplant, creating strats, thinking of stuff, VOD review, any of that stuff, then I don't know, like I'd say on average 8-10 hours a day. If we're talking about like if I'm just playing casually for fun, it's only when I play Dota. And then if you're also including like streaming hours, like it's just all over the place. Like sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm just only on for the practice days. Sometimes it's I'm on practice and I'm streaming. Sometimes it's I'm on practice and then I'm just like playing Dota or something, another game for fun. But typically speaking, we're practicing at least 5 days a week, and we're doing like at least 8 hours a day. And you know, leading up to the open qualifier, we were doing more than that. We were doing like, you know, our days were like 10 to 12 hours long with the amount of server time and VOD review that we were doing. So if you're incorporating all of that, I'm spending a lot of time. A lot of time. Question from Freeze. Is this Q&A sponsored by Razer? This one, I mean, everything technically is sponsored by Razer for me right now. I'm a hashtag Razer ambassador, but I guess like anything I do, I'm on the internet right now. Anything that I put out there is Razer is one of my sponsors, and they are a big supporter of me. So sure, absolutely, let's go. From Kirk, how has at Razer impacted your in-game leading performance during the qualifier? Well, as you could tell, I was able to hear all my opponents thanks to my Razer Blackshark V2 Pro wireless gaming headset. I was able to aim at them with my Razer Viper V2 Pro wireless gaming mouse, or I was actually using this during the qualifier, which is my Death Adder V3 Pro. And then I also have the Razer Strider mousepad and the keyboard. So definitely being able to move around, aim at people, hear my teammates, call out great plans. Everything was done super well because of my decked out Razer gear. From Hassan, rank the best agents on each map, including Bind and Breeze. That's a lot of agents and that's a lot of maps. I don't know if I could spend a whole video. I could, instead of doing all the other questions, I could just do that question alone. I'll just say Viper's the best agent on Breeze. Viper's the best agent on Bind. Viper's the best agent on Fracture. Jet's the best agent on Haven and Ascent. Jet's the best agent on Icebox. KO's the best agent on Pearl. From Roshi, what was special about DSG to make you join? DSG was the right project at the right time with the right people involved. From Mungus the Giant, how do you structure practice to be as efficient as possible? Do you ever feel stuck mid-game as an in-game leader? And what do you do when you feel like that? So structure to be as productive, as efficient as possible. I like to do it where you have enough time to talk about whatever you want to focus on for that practice day in about like an hour and a half to 2 hours before you actually go and play your first practice games. And that way you'll know like what you're focusing on for those practice games. Maybe you're incorporating a new setup or a new strategy. Maybe you're learning a new map. And then whatever time you have left over, you have individual warm-up time for your players. So some people need to play like 6 DMs or like 30 minutes of warm-up. Other people need like 5-10 minutes. Some people don't even need any time at all. And then you play some practice games, you take a short break, you come back, and before you play more practice games, you talk about like what adjustments you need to make. Hey, in the first games, this was working well and this wasn't working too great. Let's make some adjustments here. And when you play the the next games after the break, you incorporate those adjustments. And then after you played all the practice games that day, you go back and any rounds that you mark down, like, hey, this round we needed to talk about, that round, like rounds 2, 6, 7, 8, 12, 18, we need to talk about those rounds. You go back, you replay the rounds, and you talk about, like, in this situation, we're in this post plant and we had bad positions, here's what we could do better. In this situation, we're doing this default and we use too much utility and we didn't get control of the space we wanted. We need to figure out a way that we can take the space and maybe even by using less utility. Do I ever feel stuck mid-game as an in-game leader, and what do I do when I feel like that? I don't normally feel stuck mid-game as an in-game leader. The times where I would feel stuck is if nothing's working and we don't have anything else to fall back on, and that generally only happens when you're like a newer team where you haven't been able to create a deeper strat book or have a lot of depth to your strats. So right now our focus was mainly on defaults with like a small focus on set plays. So we don't have a whole lot of set plays, but set plays would be the best way to get out of just feeling stuck, because when you have a set play, everyone knows what their job is, everyone knows what the timing is. You've probably dry ran it a bunch of times, which means that you practice going through the motions against no opponent, and it's just super easy for everyone to just know what they're supposed to do. The only times I feel stuck is when we're defaulting and people aren't on an individual level doing what they normally do in practice. So they're not hitting their shots as well, they're not communicating as well, they're not relaying information as well, they're not problem solving well. And when you don't have like everyone able to operate at 100% and there's like kind of like a weakness there, it might make every other step of the default harder. So it's super easy if everyone has like set roles and responsibilities and everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do. You can just like always fall back on that. From Bowen Spackman, what does practice mostly consist of? Is it mainly learning set plays and VOD review, or is it more scrimming over and over? Is there aim training or anything else as well? So practice is the former of the question that you asked, which is learning set plays, VOD review. It's talking about the map, it's talking about the game, it's talking about like which agents are good on certain maps, why you would run certain agents on certain maps. This agent's good on this map because they can do this, that, and the other, and these are the areas of the maps that we want to control, and this is why we want to control it. It opens up this, or it prevents this, blah, 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 blah. So you spend a lot of time talking about like the philosophy behind the map and how you want to approach the map and what areas you want to control and what areas are key to control, and how you're going to control it depending on the composition that you're using. And then you go in and you kind of like create these like little things saying like, okay, we think this area is important to control. These are 3 different ways that we can do it. And then this is another area that we like to control, and these are the reasons why, and these are 3 different ways that we can do it. And then we can start by doing this control, and then we can go into that control, and then the enemy might respond by doing this or that. And this is how we're going to respond to this or that. If they start doing this, then like this is how we would react to that type of stuff. So you do that, you talk about the map, you play the map, and then after you play, you're like, yeah, every time we did this, they did this, and they beat us every time. You go back into VOD review, you say, hey, like this is what they were doing, this is how we can stop it, and you implement that system for the next time you play. You have that in your like repertoire or whatever. You have that as a response. So when the next team does that reaction to you, you're like, hey, remember when we played against so-and-so team and they were doing this? This is the solution that we created for that. Let's implement that solution right here. From Shay, what was the process behind getting this team together? As in, how did Toast reach out to you? And if it's possible to disclose the convo between you both and how you came to an agreement in playing for him. So originally Toast and Ocean were talking together, and then Ocean was talking to me, and then Ocean pitched it to Toast, and then at some point they said yeah, and then my agent started talking to Toast's team about figuring out, you know, if it's going to work, and then Toast's team and T1 started talking. So yeah, it was basically a bunch of that stuff. I wasn't in a part of most of like the negotiation type of stuff. It was mainly about me and Ocean just talking, and Ocean being like, yeah, we need an IGL, and Steel's available, let's get him. From Ambush, that's your name, right? Ambush. Nice. How did you select / meet the members of the team? So I was running the team when Ocean was the coach. Gangsta and Ziff were already like decided for the team, and then I've known Ocean since CounterStrike for the last like 10 years or so, and then Ocean had his eye on a bunch of different players he wanted to trial, and then we agreed upon you know, getting clear and then getting exalt for the team as the 4th and 5th players. And then we just went from there. From River, what team did you find most challenging? Team Fish Taco was the most challenging team. This guy, King Vinny, was just running around us in circles. So yeah. From Coach, are you guys looking to bring on any more support staff of any kind? At the moment, I don't think so, but those are definitely questions not for me. Those are questions for Ocean, Toast's. He's got staff. From Surgical Summer, what would you say was the most effective part of your limited prac time as a team that led to such good performances on such short notice? I would say the most important part was a VOD review. We spent a lot of time reviewing our practice games after our practice just to make sure that we were getting on the same page and ironing out any like differences in like opinion or map philosophy or anything like that. Just making sure we had the right comp, like agent comp, making sure that we were approaching the map the same way, making sure that we approach situations within those maps the same way, about knowing like which abilities we want to use in certain points. That was all discussed during VOD review. And that's the quickest way to get everyone onto the same page, because everyone's just like there talking to each other. And then if someone has like a question or an idea or anything, they can say, hey, I noticed this in this game. Can we watch this back? Because I really want to talk about it. And then boom, everyone's on the same page that way. From Eric Guan, I've noticed teams perform better when every member buys into a central system. What can you say about the type of system you and Ocean are trying to build in DSG? It's a good question. The system basically is that, and this is how I've kind of like always operated for the last, I don't even know how many years, is that you need to have 5 players that are individually capable of their own like in-game problem solving, about in-game like being able to like mid-round or call like for something, provide suggestions, just help in any way that they can. You never want to have it so that like if you're the IGL and you're playing towards A and your B player just doesn't know what to do or how to like fix things or adapt or adjust or anything, and then you're just across the map trying to say, oh, just do this or just do that. It's like you can't really do that because you don't know all the information that they see. You can't tell them to fast rotate if there's a guy lurking and they haven't relayed that information. So making sure everyone's like individually capable is super important. So getting everyone to that level is super important. There's an overall game philosophy that I like, which is, I mean, I'm not going to go too much into detail about it, but it's just like trust yourself, trust your teammates, make a plan, execute that plan, play with confidence, talk about what's happening. Like communication is the key to success. Like talk about like call everything, what you hear, what utility was used, and constantly update and provide info to your teammates, because that way that your teammates are able to help you, you're able to help your teammates, you're paying attention to what's happening everywhere. And it should be a lot about like taking your timings, trusting yourself, and then trying to either help your teammates or get help from your teammates for stuff. From Speed Low, how is your time on the team? Also, how many hours of practice do you do per day? We're doing probably 8 hours at least, average practice per day. Sometimes we go longer, sometimes it's a 10-hour, 12-hour day. Sometimes, depending on the day, depending on like if people have something else going on, we might have to like cut it short and then we extend the next day's practice to make up for the time we lost. My time on the team has been very positive. It's been fun. It's been good. From Tucker, how have you avoided carpal tunnel issues after playing for so many years? I'm a very lazy aimer. I put my crosshair near an enemy and I start clicking. I don't actually continuously try to aim at them. And that's why sometimes it looks like I don't even try to aim at all. And that's preserved my muscles and from getting carpal tunnel. So yeah, basically if I was an aim god, I'd have carpal tunnel by now probably. That's how I do it. From Trek, which team in Group B are you most excited to play against and why? I don't think there's any team I'm most excited to play against, just because we've played pretty much every Challengers team already in practice games, that it's just like, I don't know, it's not like oh, we never get to play them because they're in a different region type of thing. From Davis Buck, Do you miss CounterStrike, or has Valorant completely filled that gap? I don't really miss CounterStrike at all. I haven't even opened the game up since I switched to Valorant. There's things about the game and about like competing in that game for so long that I definitely like remember, but I mean, Valorant's been my life for the last few years, so I don't really think about Counter-Strike that often. From Abdel, in your honest opinion, what is the success percentage you think your team has to qualify since your group is stacked? Well, we just need to make sure that we beat the teams that we're supposed to beat, and then as long as we place high enough up to make the mid-season invitational, and then get enough points by the end of the season to make the Challengers playoffs, that's the most important thing. So we don't need to necessarily like win the whole group or anything, but we just need to do good enough, like top 4 type of stuff, so that we can make it into the Challengers playoffs. And by then, hopefully we will have enough experience as a team that we can start actually knocking everyone down. From Mayor of C, best teams from Scrims, Challengers or franchise, and best players in each role besides yourselves. I would say Sentinels and NRG looked like they were innovating the most from practice. I would say there's a bunch of teams and challengers that were really good practice teams in a sense that some of them would dominate us really badly, which would help us very rapidly learn about a map or about like our agent composition or about like what we have to work on next. And I think that's super valuable. There were a bunch of teams that would just destroy us really badly, like 20-4, 16-8 in a practice game, and would be able to go back and then implement stuff that the next time we played them, we actually beat them 16-8. A lot of the invited challengers teams, the partner teams, were like that for sure. From Lanny, how are the games? Who would you like to thank, and in what shape will you return? The games were fun. I'd like to thank all the fans, and we will return stronger. From Lilia, how do you use your practice time as a team to push through those plateaus? Is it hard to ID the key problem at times? It's not hard to ID the key problems most of the time. Like sometimes you could be like, oh, okay, this is like the symptom we're talking about, not the actual root cause. But pushing through the plateaus is just like, as long as you have somewhere to go and everyone's like all working towards the same goal, you will push past those plateaus. It's like super easy. I think teams plateauing is if players on the team can't agree on something, or if like the team's like peaked and it's just like there's nothing else you can do because the players have peaked or the team's peaked or anything like that, and there's like that's just like the limit. And I don't think we're even remotely close to that yet. From Yagan, what's the best skill or trait of each DSG member? I would say, okay, for Clear, probably his mechanics. For Gangsta, I would say how vocal he is both in and out of game about just like getting stuff done. For Ziff, I'd probably also say the same as Clear. It's mainly mechanics. And then for Exalt, it's kind of the same as Gangsta about just how vocal. I just wish you would sometimes just shut up, though, you know? And then for Ocean, I think it's for how unintentionally funny he is, how hypocritical he is when he says that we all cry a lot. He also likes to cry a lot for someone that tells us to stop crying. From Jimbo Feller, how do you feel on the other teams? Who do you guys feel the most nervous to play? I don't think we're nervous to play any of the teams. We definitely rate some teams better than others, especially with certain maps. And there's maps that we're just like, yeah, if we get these guys, we probably don't want to play this map or that map. But of all the teams, we've both either beaten or like any team that's beaten us, especially like badly, we've also beaten back and badly in practice games. So it's not that we're like nervous or anything. We feel pretty confident in ourselves and that we have a good game plan. So all we have to do is like make sure that we play the same way in these practice games and carry that over to the matches. And if we don't, then we're screwed. But if we do, then we'll be pretty good. And I don't think we're like nervous to play against any of them. From Splair, what do you do when you're not scrimming or playing ranked? VOD review, chilling, gym, mechanics, practice, hanging with family? Yeah, I sometimes like if I'm at my computer and I still want to like play games or something, or I just don't have the attention to do anything else, I'll play games or I'll just like mindlessly like watch some YouTube videos or something. I do like to watch certain TV series or movies, like that's probably and eat food. Like those are those are things that I like to do if I'm like after practice, especially when my attention span's down. But sometimes yeah, I hang out with family and dogs, and I haven't been to the gym in a long time. From Grumpy, how does the calling work on the team? Are you solo IGLing on attack or defense on every map? Yeah, so I don't know what people say these days about how IGLing works, but basically my job as the IGL is to create the overall game plan and to basically implement like the systems and the structure that everyone's gonna like kind of play into. I'm gonna call a lot of like the start of the round stuff about like where we're gonna start and what our immediate goals are, and then potentially even what our end of round goals are. So I'll call about like where we're gonna start on the map and what location we want to fight for, and I'll talk about like our economy and the opponent's economy and what ultimates the opponents have, and that I'll try to like put us in a good position. And then a lot of the time I'll also like mid round, which means that once we've done the first step and we've identified like what the opponent's setup is and if they're pushing us or they're not, and like where their opera is or do they have an op or any of these things, I'll make a decision about like, are we going to hit A or hit B? Are we going to split it? Are we going to regroup in like 5-man it? Are we going to do a fake or a double fake? I'll call that probably like 80% of the time, and then usually like Exalt will step up and do a lot of like mid rounding in a lot of situations. For defense stuff, a lot of this is on individuals, so I'm not always going to make decisions for people on defense. It's mainly like if I'm B on Icebox's Viper and I have 3 teammates on A, I can't tell them if they should push, if they should hold, if they should rotate, if they should leave one guy. I can't make these decisions for them all the time. So other people need to kind of step up and be that pack leader and say, all right, let's fall back. All right, let's over rotate. All right, let's push through. And then talk about like, hey, they're darting this every round, and then they do this. Let's do this. I can help, I can guide, and I can go into VOD review after practice and say like, hey, you guys like need to fall back earlier. You guys need to ask for help. You guys should take like another person there. I can help with that and guide them after the game, but during the game, they have to use like everything we've talked about ahead of time to kind of problem solve themselves and make their own decisions, especially if I'm not with them. From Slasher, if you had to choose, what was the #1 hardest hurdle to overcome with this team during practice matches or anything in between? Getting 5 players, getting everyone on for practice, and on time. I think getting everyone into the same system was relatively easy. I think individually, like everyone was wanted to buy in. It just took some people longer than others and had to work on themselves individually about like what their responsibilities were on their agents, especially if there were like agent changes or if they played one style on one team as like a certain agent and on another, and then on this team they have to kind of like modify themselves a little bit to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more passive or whatever. So that was definitely probably the biggest hurdle, but all in all, it doesn't feel like it was a big hurdle at all. Anyways, from Birdman, was a bicycle clip a calculated move or a one-off shenanigan? That was a one-off shenanigan from a time where I did a lot of one-off shenanigans with some calculated moves. I happened to have my bike. I didn't have a car at the time, and it was right behind me. I got mad that I wanted to leave the PC. I saw it. I hopped on it. I did a little circle. From SpeedRush64, in a 7-day week, what does your practice schedule look like? Is it 4 days of scrims, 1 day of VOD review, server work, game theory, and 2 days off? In a 7-day practice week, I think generally speaking, we're going to look at 5 days where you get on, you do a little bit of server work, you play a few games, you take a small break, you get on and do a tiny bit more like adjustments, and you play a couple more games. Then after you finish all the, whether it's 4, 5, or 6 scrims in a day, and you could like vary it depending on the day or how much practice you need, you'd go into a VOD review after, where anything you couldn't discuss right then and there in like 5-10 seconds, where it would take you 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to discuss like what happened. Then you would mark that round down and you revisit later where you could talk about it, and just make sure that you fix whatever. And then during tournament weeks, you might even want to add like a 6th day where you just have it for VOD review and like preparing against the next team that you're about to play against, or maybe you're like looking at like what you did in the previous match and then what you want to like change or adjust or like avoid, or like maybe doing like masking it so it's like, oh, we showed this strat all the time in this other match that we played, let's make sure that we have like a way to fake this or something. From Everardo, what would you say it's different between Disguised compared to 100 Thieves and T1? How are you implementing your experiences from previous teams in Valorant into Disguised? So outside of like the org situation, if we're focusing mainly on like players and cohesion as a team, and me as an in-game leader and like bringing in my philosophy, I would say in 100 Thieves there was a lot of cooks, and it was difficult. Like not everyone would buy into my plan, but then like the other people wouldn't like have plans that everyone wanted to buy into either. So there was a lot of like, well, who are we buying into? Are we buying into the IGLs or this players or the coaches, or what's going on here? On T1, there was a lot of like I talked about my overall like philosophy for playing and for practice and all that stuff, and I had like a lot of influence on like how to approach maps, or, like what eras were super important, but I wasn't super. I wasn't like 80% my voice on that team about like everything. When we're going through VOD review, it wasn't like me giving like most of the criticism. It was like other people were talking, the coach was talking, all that stuff. And I think on this team, it's like it's a large element coming from me, my system and everything. And like on T1, people like kind of, I'd say for the most part, were trying to buy in, but there would be like it felt like there was some hesitation and it wasn't like done properly. I think on this team, it's like we're still not yet there, like always doing what I think we should be doing or what I want us to be doing, but we're moving in that direction. Like everyone wants to move in that direction. It's just that people have come from different experiences or backgrounds where they're still learning how to do it, as opposed to they just don't want to do it. Thank you for participating in the Twitter AMA. I hope that you guys enjoyed my answers. There were some really good, cool, interesting questions, and there's some pretty troll questions, and I think you know who you are.